So today we're going to be talking about the best games of 2023. Now I know this is kind of late, like a month late. I haven't posted in a while. I was going to do this whole thing where I made a bunch of reviews for all these games that I missed, and it just wasn't worth it at this point, right? You guys know what you want to know about Alan Wake and the Avatar game and all of that stuff. There's no point in me reiterating what everybody else has already said. But the best and worst games videos, I feel like these are important videos, so that's what we're going to do. We're just going to do this. There's going to be some games on here that I didn't make videos on. You'll get the gist of how I feel about them from this video. This is going to be the best. There'll be a most disappointing soon. Hopefully these will both be out before the Suicide Squad game comes out, and then we can just go back to our normal schedule. So, we're going to start out. We have 7 here for best. I'm not going to force it to be 10 or 5 or any sort of even number. It's going to stick with 7. We're going to start with the worst of the best and move our way up to the best. So starting out with number 7, we have Forza Motorsport. And so, yes, I know it's a racing game, and I have this like 3-page script I could sit here and read about Forza Motorsport, but really all you need to know as to why this game is on the list. There's Motorsport and there's Horizon within the Forza. Horizon's your like open world, kind of arcadey, while still simulated feeling, and Motorsport is like the real gritty track racing where you gotta mess with like your tire pressure and all of that simulation stuff, right? And typically, I'm not a fan of Motorsport. It's not my thing. It's not what I'm into. I like the more arcadey feel, jumping off the mountains and stuff with the Ford Raptors in Forza Horizon, right? But for some reason this time, upping the difficulty and just really getting into it and like learning the tracks and how the cars perform, and in the career mode trying to get gold and all the cups to earn more money to go to the next cup, to have a better car, to upgrade your cars. I just felt it with this one. Now, again, this game's on Game Pass, so it's free, so that's a big part of it. I didn't pay $70 for this, but I just felt that this should go on the list because, one, I wasn't expecting it to be good. I wasn't expecting to really have any interest in this, but I put a decent amount of time into it, and it is casual enough to where you can enjoy it as somebody who's never played one of the motorsport games, but there's enough depth there that, you know, you can evolve as you play it. Like I said, is this the absolute best game of the year, 10 out of 10 experience? No. But if you want to play a racing game, and you already have Game Pass, this is the racing game to play. When you want to play a racing game, when you get that itch, it's Forza is what you should be playing. Even if you've never tried Motorsport, even if it's new to you, you think it's too much, the competitive track racing can lower and raise difficulty a whole bunch, and I feel that the ceiling is a lot higher here than it is in something like Horizon, and that makes it a lot more fun. And you can see, it starts out rough. You can see my driving is absolute dog shit in the beginning. But as you use the car more and tune it to the way that you want, and you learn the tracks, because you will learn the tracks because you play them so many times, that eventually you will get really solid and be cutting seconds off your times, and it'll feel great. So that's why I put this kind of towards the end of the list at number 7. But let's go ahead and move on to number 6. So at number 6, I have Alan Wake 2. And so this is one of those games that everyone was like, what the hell was that, when it won a bunch of awards at the Game Awards. I was a little bit ahead of that. I saw all the good reviews, decided to play it. I didn't talk about it at all on the channel, and there's a good reason for it. It's very confusing, right? I didn't want to sound like an idiot talking about it, so I'm not even going to attempt to explain the story here. But if you played other Remedy games like Control and Quantum Break, it's that same trope they do where you kind of understand the theme and what's going on and the major plot points, but the overarching idea and the plot, what's happening, in what order, why it's happening, those types of things, you have absolutely no clue what's going on until the end of the game. That's how all of these games are, and this one is much more like that. It's very story-driven. The gameplay is there, and it's much more survival horror than Control or Quantum Break, right? It's a lot of, oh, you have to use your resources, which in this game is light, in order to weaken an enemy so that you can shoot them with the very few bullets that you have. It's much like Resident Evil and one of those types of survival horror games. Now, the story's good. It has a lot of cool mechanics, like the investigation board and stuff like that, but it's lower on the list for me because you're so lost within the story, and it gets so confusing, and the gameplay isn't there to back up getting you from that moment to moment, if that makes sense. Again, if you can get all the way through it, and you might have to watch a video here or there to really understand what was happening, maybe play it multiple times, you really got to sit down and think about this one. But if you can bear with all of that, and the what I would call okay slow-paced gameplay and puzzles, then this game, the story that's here, just watching this even, is a really good time. So that's why I put it at number 6 on this list. So rounding out the bottom section of this list, if you will, we have Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now, not everybody loved this game, and I don't think this is an absolute 10 out of 10. This isn't the best Assassin's Creed game by far, but I like Assassin's Creed games. I like these types of games. I like the melee combat, run around, beat people up, do outposts. You could make a game, you could make Ghost of Tsushima and take out the whole story. You could make any Assassin's Creed game, take out the whole story. Give me a tiny bit of progression and some good melee combat and some outposts to do, and you're going to keep me entertained for at least 20 hours. And so that's what we got going on here. I dabble in my Assassin's Creed every 2 or 3 years. I get my melee combat fix out, and then I come back every 2 or 3 years. The story, yeah, it's not the greatest thing ever. There's better Assassin's Creed games, but it's a good time. The stealth, it does what it needs to do. There's a decent amount of customization, and the combat is fun. It's not too long, like some people complain about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but there's still a lot of collectibles and things to do there if you like all of that stuff like I do. The game looks good, it runs good, and I'm sure it runs and looks even better now, months after the game comes out, as most games tend to do. So this is kind of a quick one on the list. Like I said, have a full video out for this, and the ones that I've talked about before on the channel I don't want to spend too long going over, and this is just a solid middle of the list game. It's good, it's a good time, especially if you get it on sale. It was $50 at launch, so if you can get this now for like $25 and you like these types of games and you have no problem with the formula that they follow, because there definitely is a formula, it's a good time in my opinion. But let's just move right along. So this is one that I actually think I was too harsh on at launch. I want to say I gave this like a 7 or something like that when I made the review. You can go watch all these reviews, they're on my channel. And I gave the first game an 8, something like that. This game is definitely a bit more up there, especially now that the performance issues are fixed and all the graphical bugs are fixed and it's been out for a while. You can get it on sale now. But with all those performance issues, because if you watch my video, it's a long video, but I basically just complain about the performance issues the whole game. Everything else about this game is absolutely fantastic, right? I mean, again, 10 out of 10, like, other than the performance issues. So I want to say, like I said, I gave this a 7, and then I ended up saying the first game was an 8. Both of these games are probably 9s, right? This game, the more I think about it and the more I look back on it and watch other people play it and talk about it, this game is very fucking good. And so I was way too hard on it, and if these other games above it were absolute bangers, and just, this was really a bad year for Jedi Survivor to come out. There was just so many bangers this year, right? If this had come out last year, or, you know, a typical gaming year, this easily would have been the #1 game, even with the performance issues. But because of the other things that came out, it's sitting here on the list. There's a huge gap, in my opinion, between 7, 6, and 5, and then my top 4. There is a giant gap. Not to say that those games are good, but it's just in quality and the content itself. These top couple games are absolutely fantastic, eaten up level games. So you guys are going to be angry about this one, right? And listen, I know it's number 3, so you're thinking, what the hell is number 2? Everybody knows what number 1 is. Like, I'm not fooling anybody. We know what the #1 game is. It's what everybody's #1 game is. But why is this number 3? So hear me out before, if you haven't already left the video, before you click off the video, all right? So honestly, I'm gonna be real. I just think the first game's better. Like the first game, just the story in the first game is better. Yes, like the gameplay is better and the swinging is better, but like the suits for Peter have about the same level of quality, and then the suits for Miles, they're kind of trash. Just like in the Miles game, the suits are kind of trash, right? There's like 2 or 3 that are viable. The rest of them kind of suck, right? And that's just my opinion. But it really comes down to the story, right? I found that like the whole Aunt May dying and all of that stuff, they just didn't use Harry right, in my opinion. Like I just didn't care that he was dying. Like the game's good. Don't get me wrong. Like I could sit here and make an hour and a half video about all the things the game does right, right? The web wings. And the new combat abilities and Miles' new abilities and all of that stuff. I could sit here and talk about it for a minute. But at the end of the day, I think the story in the first game between Peter and Doc Ock and with Aunt May dying and just this, like the closest thing you have to that is the Miles and Martin Lee stuff, right? And again, this isn't a bad game, right? I'd give this like a solid 8 or a 9. This is very good, right? But I just think the first one better. I'm gonna be real. You can get mad at me all you want, but it is what it is. I'm moving on. So at number 2, and oh man, this is gonna piss so many people off. I'm putting the Cyberpunk expansion. All right, yeah, I know technically the game didn't come out this year, and how am I gonna put this above Spider-Man? Get over it. I hated the base game so much. I mean, absolutely hated it. I don't know what I gave it. I want to say it was like a 3. I hated Cyberpunk, right? But they've been fixing it and they've been making changes and updates, and so they finally released this expansion, right? And I thought it was gonna be free, but I paid for it. I paid my $30 or whatever the hell it cost. I don't even remember anymore. But it was absolutely fantastic. When the game runs the way it's supposed to, and looks the way it's supposed to, and forms the way it's supposed to, and doesn't crash every 20 seconds, and they fixed the skill tree, and they fixed the weapon system, and they fixed the AI, and they fixed the police spawning, and they make likable characters, and they make the story good, and I could just keep counting, but that was like 10 things. It's so good. It's absolutely fantastic. It's what the game should have been. They fixed all of the problems that were there, and then made their own story that, in my opinion, in a quarter of the time, had significantly more likable characters and was a better rounded story overall. But I have a whole video on it. If you want to see me rant about the expansion, just go play it. It's so good. If you hated the base game, give it a try, right? Or just go play the base game. The base game is actually pretty decent now. The story, I still hate the story, but the gameplay itself and the world and all of that stuff, they've really improved this game. And I think when they make a second one in 2077, when it actually comes out, if they release it right, it'll do absolutely fantastic. So yeah, number 1 is Baldur's Gate 3. You can go home now. The video's over. But in all seriousness, right? This game's great. I didn't really make a video on it. I kind of just did like a first impressions video based off what everybody else was saying. I was kind of like 10 hours in. Didn't really understand what the hell I was doing when I made the video. But I've played the whole game through. I think it took me like 95 hours, 94 hours, something like that, the whole way through. And then I've played the first mission, I would call it, the first opening section, however you want to look at it, 2 different times as 2 different characters with 2 different groups of people, and gotten 2 completely different outcomes both times I played it. Now obviously the ending of the game, the main story is going to follow the same path, but who's alive, who you do it with, the side content, all of that stuff, right? Even the gameplay drastically changes every time you play it, who you play it with, and the choices you make. This is when the games say, oh, choices matter. This is where choices actually matter. No. This game's absolutely fantastic. Now it has a high, I wouldn't call it skill ceiling, but knowledge ceiling, if you will, right? This game's super intimidating if you just look at the HUD. right? I watched a 2.5 hour video explaining the HUD, just the HUD, before I even played the game. So there's a lot to go over here. There's a lot to understand. Once you get past that intimidation factor of playing this type of game, if you've never played it before, it's an absolute blast. 10 out of 10. Like, game of the year. No bugs, no performance issues, no crashes. Ran fantastic. The story, I guess you could say the story could be bad depending on which route you choose, but that's not really the point. The point is that you get to choose a route and it can be different every time. It's so good. I just want to play it again and again and again and again. It's fantastic, right? Like, Spider-Man's good, and Cyberpunk is good, and Jedi Survivor are good games if it would have launched right. But those are all good games. But those aren't games that, like, when the PlayStation 7 comes out, you're gonna be like, damn, I wish they would make Baldur's Gate 4 already. You know what I mean? Like, this is gonna be I wish they would make Elder Scrolls 6 already. This is what that's gonna be in 10 years, right? This is gonna be GTA 6, right? And so that's my list. That's really all I have to say. I don't want to make this video too long, and I don't want to talk too much, because I'm going to end up screaming in the most disappointed games of the year video. So that's always a fun time. But you guys let me know what you would change. I'm sure, everyone would put Spider-Man at number 1. But you guys let me know your list down in the comments below. If you would take anything off the list, add things to the list, what you think overall, and try to take a guess at what's going to be on my most disappointed list while you're down there. It's not going to be that hard to guess, but I'll see you guys on the next one, and hopefully we'll go back to posting more regularly.